not work now. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So we are sorting out the last technical issues, so to say. I think we are on stage now. Perfect. Then, Manuela, stage is yours.
Perfect. So welcome to the Flutter meetup of October of Flutter Berlin. My name is Manuela, and I would say a big applause for Media Markt Saturn because they are hosting today this meetup. So big applause, everyone. So the agenda for today is the welcome notes. Those are here, the welcome notes right now. I will give my word to Andreas from Media Markt Saturn. Afterwards, we have a talk by Khalit, Jonas, and Lukas. And in the end, we host a quiz for the people that are live here in Berlin. And in the end, we also have a networking and food sponsored by Media Markt Saturn. So thank you so much for that. So first, a few words about the Flutter Berlin meetup team. So today we had 2 people, Ümit and me. And we also have 2 other people, Sali, who is currently in his baby break, and Sasha, who is currently in DevFest speaking. I am also happy to share this DroidCon London code. So if any one of you has no plans next week, you can come to London and get 50% off this ticket price with this code. So if anyone wants to take a picture, do it now. All right, and we have a Flutteristas conference on the 11th of November online on YouTube. So please feel free to join. If anyone here is a non-binary or female Flutter developer, feel free to join the Flutteristas group. We're always happy to have you. So now let's give a big applause to Andreas.
Thanks. So sorry, we have a little bit of a different setup today. We didn't align on the slide formats. This is why I need to quickly change, and hopefully now it works. In the meanwhile, to not waste too much time, first of all, big thank you to all of you joining us today. And I have only one question to you. How do you like the venue? Amazing. Thanks a lot. Since I don't see the slides on screen, we had this beforehand, so makes me just a little bit nervous. Let's give it a second try. There we go. Cool. So I have a small advertisement block because, of course, we are Media Markt Saturn. Don't worry, I don't want to sell you stuff. I want to tell you a little bit more about ourselves, about our domain. My name is Andreas. I'm the department manager of the Flutter development team here at Media Markt Saturn. I brought you some numbers to give you an idea about the Flutter app that we are having in the market or in the app stores. We have around 30 million unique users per year. We send out over 1 billion push notifications all over Europe to our customers. And our app generates in a year around 500 million of turnover. Now, you may think we have a huge team around or behind the scenes. Yes, we have, or actually we have 5 teams. This team consists in total of 30 people, 30 colleagues, and we have out of that 18 Flutter engineers who work on our apps. Last slide, then we come to the really interesting part. What is our tech stack? I think, or that's the tech stack of our online sales channel. So online sales channel is our web shop and our app. Of course, highlighted, you see Flutter, Firebase, Sentry, GraphQL is the interface that our app is talking to. And you can see a lot of other technologies who are mostly used in the web shop. With that, thanks a lot for the short introduction. And now I'm very happy to welcome on stage Khalit to give you the first talk.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How are you guys? Good? All right. So today I'm going to talk to you about smart push notifications. My name is Khalit Hartmann, and that's the clicker. I've been a software developer for over 6 years. And a Flutter developer since the early beta stages. Currently at Media Markt Saturn, I work in the front end and on the back end. If you want to know a bit more about me, you can visit my website, khal.it. So who are we? Andy already mentioned us. We are the consumer apps team of Media Markt Saturn. We develop and maintain our apps for all our different sales lines. We have 13 different countries in which our app is active. And we have one of the bigger Flutter teams in Germany, I would say. We also have a push notification service that has been brought into life since last quarter, and that's precisely what I'm working on. So, first of all, one question. Who has ever worked with push notifications? A lot of people. And what are the main problems you would say push notifications have? Anybody? Oh. I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear anything, but I would assume somebody said the open rate is very low. And that's exactly the problem that we're trying to fix. So, for example, these are some campaign stats. So for campaign marketing push notifications that we sent, this is an example where our service basically performed very badly. So it's a very extreme example. So for 2.7 million sent push notifications, anybody wants to guess what the open rate was? In percent, maybe? that's close, 0.6%. Yeah, bit ashamed, but I guess. These are around 17,000. And from these 17,000, how many push notifications actually led to a conversion? In percent. Let me answer the question. 0.3%, 66. And that's an even lower number. And that's, as I mentioned, exactly, so you can't even see the graph. That's exactly the problem that we're trying to solve. So upon some research, we basically identified some of the factors that influence the effectiveness of our push notifications. One of them is timing. So if you send the push notification at the wrong time for a user, the user is less likely to open it. The push notification might even disrupt the user. So if you're studying, for example, or working, and you receive a push notification, it's more of a disturbance. Relevance. Many notifications are relevant for some users, but for a lot of other users, those notifications are not relevant. So they rather annoy the user, for which the notifications are not relevant for. Sending too many push notifications is also not very recommendable, I would say, since if you send too many push notifications, the user is more likely to get overwhelmed. And I, for example, have around 50 apps on my phone. And each of these apps compete for my attention, the user's attention. And that's that's precisely one big problem. You are basically competing against 50 different, or 50 or more, or less, different apps for the user's attention. And if you don't get it right, other apps will gain this attention and your app won't. All these factors, these factors, if done wrong, might decrease the receptivity of a user. But what is receptivity? Receptivity is the individual's ever-changing ability and/or willingness to receive, process, or utilize an interception. In our case, an interception is a push notification or an action that the app basically performs. Receptivity can be seen as a function between internal and external factors. Internal could be the mood, and external, like the location in which the user is moving in, or if the user is, for example, driving a car. These are all external factors that play a significant role, I would say, for the effectiveness of push notifications. So our underlying assumption is that providing support when the person is not receptive will not be beneficial, and we should not actually send push notifications when the user is receptive. Sending push notifications to an unreceptive user could be counterproductive and lead to opt-outs. So basically, the user revoking push notification permissions. Again, our hypothesis, we should, if we time our push notification properly and we provide user-tailored push notifications, this would increase the value of our push notifications to our users and would therefore lead to higher conversion or higher open rates, and this will intrinsically lead to higher conversion rates. Our goals are to reduce the overload. Don't send push notifications if there's a low probability for an open. Optimize the timing of a push notification. Try to get the timing right for each and every user. Each and every user has a different, basically different time where he or she is receptive for a push notification, and increase the relevance of these push notifications by tailoring the push notifications to the user's needs. And that's where I come to the concept of just-in-time adaptive interventions. This system has been heavily researched for addiction support apps, medical health apps, and, for example, weight loss apps. The system allows an app to offer support at the right time by monitoring the user's internal and external states. The system only presents support whenever the user is actually in a vulnerable state. For medical health apps, a vulnerable state would be a state in which, for example, or for an addiction app, where the user or the phone, the app detects that the user is likely to fall back into old bad patterns and a receptive state. So whenever the user is actually receptive. So we plan to utilize this concept of just-in-time adaptive interventions, or JITIs, to actually improve our push notifications. But first, let me explain some terminology. Just-in-time refers to basically sending push notifications or intervening at the right time, and not intervening at all if the push if the success rate of this push notification is low. Adaptive refers to the system being able to use internal and external, the internal and external state of the user to offer the user, first of all, to detect if the user is receptive to a push notification, and to figure out to which types of interventions the user is actually receptive to at a specific time. Exactly. And interventions could be any form of interference that is indeed intended to motivate the user to perform an action. In our case, the interventions are push notifications, but this JITI or this system can be used for many other use cases. But how could this system be modeled? First of all, let's look at the outcomes that the system has to have. The distal outcomes are basically the ultimate goal. In our case, for example, for marketing pushes, a distal outcome could be a higher conversion rate. And the proximal outcomes are the short-term goals. These outcomes eventually lead to the distal outcome, or to the distal outcome to be fulfilled, and are measured after every intervention. You can measure after every intervention. So, for example, to make it more clear, the distal outcome could be a higher conversion rate, and the proximal outcome could be a tap on a notification, so an open, or just the user perceiving the notification. You can imagine a marketing push has some information about a new marketing campaign at Media Markt Saturn, and by just looking at this push notification, the user already gathers the information that there's a campaign in this specific store, right? So indirectly, the user might convert to actually buying or purchasing a product from this campaign. Now, let's look at the decision points. First of all, we discuss now the outcome of our system, what we want our system to achieve. Now, let's refer to the system as a whole, how it works. The decision point refers to the time at which the intervention decision is made. The point in which the system decides whether or not to show an intervention, in our case, a push notification. For local notification messages, for example, local notification messages are the notification messages that are scheduled on device and are not sent from a server. So they're not a push, but yeah, local notification message. You could define pre-specified time intervals, for example. And upon the, whenever you, so basically you would check, for example, every X minutes for a specific state and decide whether to send the push notification or not, or at specified times of a day. And for push notifications, the decision point is basically whenever the server sends a push notification to the user or to the user's device. The tailoring variables are basically the variables used to decide if to provide an intervention, what type of intervention to provide, and these tailoring variables have to be obtained either via active or passive assessment. Active assessment requires the user's intervention. So the user has to actively basically tell us what information to use for our push notifications. In an example, in the Media Markt Saturn app, we have a wish list feature, where that user basically adds products that he wishes to have to his wish list. And this is exactly such an example for active assessment. The user is actively giving us more information about his preferences. And passive assessment basically needs minimal or no engagement at all, because this kind of information can be retrieved via sensor data of our phone. Our phones or smartphones are very powerful and have very powerful sensors. We could utilize those to gather some information about our users, of course, with consent. And we also, an app like Media Markt Saturn already has some information about their users. Of course, the user has to basically accept us to use those information, but basically information could already be there. So examples about these tailoring variables could be for passively assessed tailoring variables, a device type. Android users might like to have push notifications for Android devices, but Apple users who feel very strongly about Apple would only want push notifications for Apple products, for example. Location is also a very good example. Whenever the OS enables us, or the operating system enables us to ask where the user actually is, or retrieve the GPS information of the user, we could utilize this information to maybe send out a push. Actively assessed tailoring variables could be like the wish list that I already mentioned, or the search history of the user. And the intervention options refer to a list of possible actions that the app can take. In our case, push notifications, there are different types of push notifications, like information notifications, promotional notifications, location-based notifications, and rich pushes. But there are other actions that the app could actually also take, like reschedule a push notification that came in from the server. This way, we can basically tell the app, okay, we just received a push notification, but now is not the right time to display it. Maybe try another time after 30 minutes. Or the no push action. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes it is not beneficial to show a push notification. If there's a push notification recommending a certain product to a user, and we know this user won't even consider buying this product, why show this push notification? Why annoy the user? And the decision maker. The decision maker is the core component of the system. It specifies which intervention options to offer to the user, or to which user, and when. So 3 variables. Which intervention options, to whom, and when. It links the intervention options and the Taylor variables in a systematic way. And there are multiple ways to actually implement those decision makers. There could be an algorithmic approach where you have basically a decision tree or a bunch of if-else statements. This is the more simple approach, I would say. But there could be also a more complex approach using machine learning. The model could be on device, meaning that we could use reinforcement learning to actually gather feedback from this from each action and incorporate it back to the AI model. This way, each user would have his own user-tailored decision maker on their phone. Now, let's move from the theory to actual practical examples. Imagine you're here at Alexanderplatz, you're walking through the shopping alley, and you have your phone with you. On your Media Markt Saturn app, or Media Markt app, actually, I don't know if there's a Media Markt here, so I'll pick Saturn. On your Saturn app, you added some products to your wish list. And your app basically knows about these products. Now, in the background, your app would be able to check, basically, does this store, this Saturn store, have these products? And does this Saturn store maybe have a sale on these products? And if the app finds, or the system finds, a sale matching this product, we would send a push notification. This is basically a win-win situation for both. The user already wanted to purchase the product, and Media or Saturn is selling products and makes a successful sell with a push notification. So in this case, the distal outcome would be, of course, motivate the user to purchase the product in store. Proximal outcomes could be just make the user aware of the specific product. And the intervention option, basically, the push notification informing the user about that. Another example could be an abandoned cart push notification. Another scenario, you're at home, sitting on the couch, playing around with the Media Markt Saturn app, and you put some things in your cart, you want to buy them. And now, suddenly, I don't know, your boyfriend or girlfriend comes in and distracts you, right? Your cart is still filled with stuff, but you didn't check out. This is a situation that we, as the app, don't like, but you, as a user, probably forgot to just check out and just need a reminder. But then, the app could also check at a specific time if there's an offer for one of the products that are in the app, in the shopping cart. Let's say there's a 20% discount on one of the items. That's awesome, but the user doesn't know about this discount. And this discount might end very soon. With the help of the abandoned cart push notification, we could inform our user that there's a sale on this specific item, and if you purchase now, you get a 20% off the price. So again, a win-win situation, I would say. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbow. we have problems. First of all, we're in Germany. Like Datenschutz, GDPR, privacy is a very important topic and a very sensitive topic. And we're talking about very sensitive data here. And first of all, we want to make clear that our system would not use the sensitive data, would only use the sensitive data for the sole reason of providing a better service, never sell the data or something like that. So we need to create trust. Tailoring variables are also very hard to test. We don't know which ones are the best for specific users, the best to use, which ones are the most effective, and this needs extensive testing. Our JITI should also be able to work with a subset of tailoring variables. So assuming, the user only gave access to a certain subset of his data, this JITI, the system, should still work. And this brings us to the next problem. The performance of the JITI might vary strongly depending on the permissions that the user gave us. So there are a lot of open questions, but I would say manageable maybe. But that was my presentation. Hope you liked it. Thank you for your attention. And yeah. You guys have any questions? I think we have a second mic somewhere.
Yes, we have here a second mic.
Hello, I have a very simple question. Thanks for the nice presentation and everything. I'm just curious about the after. So you showed us the before stats. I'm very curious what happened after all of these learnings and smartifying the push notifications. Thank you.
I was actually scared about this question because this system is basically still in what we call the discovery phase, right? So it's not implemented. There are a lot of papers on that we read, but there are no stats. That's why I didn't show any stats. But maybe in the next talk, for Berlin 2.0, Media Markt Saturn.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm curious, like, which actual approach you use in order to decide whether to show presentation or not. Is it like on-device machine learning model? And if yes, like, what? If you can elaborate a little bit what you use, like how you use it, and what kind of challenges you have. Thank you.
Okay, so I think I got the question right. I didn't hear you 100%, but your question, which kind of decision maker we use, basically if we use the algorithmic approach or a machine learning approach. As I said, we're still in the discovery phase, so we're still testing multiple approaches out, and our current app doesn't have a system like that implemented, right? But it's probably going to be sort of a mashup of the two. But I can't tell you any details. Reinforcement learning on device would be like my preferable solution. I don't know if it's manageable to test such a solution because the reinforcement learning, like the model would have different results on each device, right? But I'm not a machine learning expert. I wouldn't know how to actually test that. I think there was a question.
Thanks for the interesting presentation. One of the questions I had with regards to using sensors on the device, particularly motion sensors. In the case of Android, I understand you can only really access those when the app is in the foreground. So how much information are you actually able to harness when the app is
the location data?
Not location data, motion data.
Oh. Well, for location data, I would have the answer. But motion data, not sure. Maybe some of our developers, could answer that.
Oh, I see. So it's primarily more location data as opposed to motion data. So say if your algorithm decided the user was busy doing something else, you wouldn't be able to tell because your app wasn't in the foreground, and then the app wouldn't be able to access the sensor data.
So maybe you can ask this question later at the networking session. I think we had one more question somewhere here. No? Up there. Okay, this is the last question. Everyone else is just going to ask you later at the networking.
Maybe speak a bit louder or move the... I don't think the speakers are...
Hi. So adding a model or either it's AI or algorithmic, it would increase the size of the app quite a bit. So it might result in uninstallation or less app being installed. How would you handle it?
Well, the idea would be not to load the AI model with the initial app bundle, right? The idea would be to, well, first of all, there's two different scenarios. The user wants or gives us permission to use this JIT on device, right? Or there's the other approach where the user doesn't want this. He wants push notifications, but he still wants the old system, so we still spam him with push notifications. And the AI model would be loaded after installation if the user accepts. And may I add one thing? So we have a small short survey that you guys, this QR code you guys could scan, just to help us improve our push notifications. There are some basic questions regarding what kind of sensor data you would allow or give permission for, or how could we improve our push notification service. Just some general questions. Would be nice and appreciated if some of you at least would fill it out. Thank you.
So the next person on stage is Jonas, and he's going to tell us something about quality and mobile life cycles. I'm very interested in that. So we have to just like switch the slides once. Yeah. All right. So big applause for Jonas.
Thank you. So I guess this is the biggest audience I've had yet, so please be a little patient with me. Thank you. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So I'm here to tell you about quality throughout the application lifecycle and how we ensure quality with roughly 80 million installs across all of our apps. But first, a few quick bits about myself. So I'm a mobile developer at Media Markt Saturn for roughly 2 years now, and I started Flutter when it hit the first stable version. I'm also an open source enthusiast and a Flutter favorite author of the feedback package, which you can see on the left side, and one of the DIO maintainers. But enough of that. So first, a little bit more context about our app and why quality is so important for us. So we've heard before that we have a lot of sales lines, which you can imagine as flavors, which is probably more of what you know. We have 11 of them. We have in total roughly 80 million installs and over 120 feature flags, and it just keeps growing. We also have 18 developers, designers, product owners, and analysts. Yeah, so you can imagine the complexities of our app. And that brings me to the next slide. So what is quality? We have here a lot of buzzwords or quality aspects, and we can kind of separate them into two areas, which are those two. There's a little bit of overlap, so please don't take it too seriously. But yeah, we have the right side and the left side. And, well, so the left side is basically everything we test before we go live with any code. The right side is what we test after we went live with code. And now you might ask yourself, why is it called shift left and shift right? So it's basically about shifting where we put our focus during quality measurement and assessment. This is what Facebook's move fast and break things motto could look like. So they invest in a lot of observability and infrastructure. So they do a lot of it while it's in use, but not as much before it's actually put into production. If you have a lot of money, you could do it like this, invest in both areas. For mobile apps, it typically looks a lot like this. So you do a lot more before you put any code into production, but as well you do a lot of quality assessments after it's put into production, but not as much. Now the question arises, why do we put more effort into the before releasing? And this is because of the nature of mobile apps. So, as you might know, there's nothing like a rollback for mobile apps. And as soon as you put out a version, it's there forever. There's no taking it back. Also, updating the app takes a lot of time. So for us, it takes roughly 3 weeks until the majority of our users have the latest version installed. 3 weeks is a lot. And because of that, bugs shouldn't even make it to our customers, right? Because once in production, really hard to get rid of. Okay, so just to recap, shift left is ensuring that design criteria are met. So we do early issue detection. We put quite a lot of effort into high code quality, which in turn also reduces development costs, right? Because early detection of issues of any kind during development, it's quite cheap to fix. It also improves our collaboration because if I write tests for my code and a coworker refactors it, he's also quite sure that he didn't break anything if all the tests passes. But then again, we also have to make sure that everything we put into production is also of high quality, and yeah, we ensure that by adopting shift-right methodologies. And we do that by gathering real-world performance insights. We introduce rapid feedback and iteration by putting out a lot of app versions, and hopefully that helps us to improve our customer satisfaction. Now, since we have all the basics now down, let's jump right into our methodologies. First, we start with linting and formatting. I assume a lot of you also do that, right? We use Flutter lints and the lints package. We've also started using custom lints, and we hope that we can encode a lot of tribal knowledge about the app into custom lints. And that should also help with speeding up onboarding and knowledge sharing. We also enforce formatting so that we have, well, smaller code diffs and a consistent code style. The next step are tests. So we have the regular unit tests, we write widget tests and golden image tests. Golden image tests, you can imagine like taking a screenshot of a UI component, and then if we refactor a specific widget, we take another screenshot and compare both of them to make sure that there's no visual difference. So now we have a couple methodologies already down. So after we've done that, we put up our code and we do a pull request review. That means we figure out during it whether there are any obvious things wrong. We also do a step of manual testing, kind of like explorative testing, so we just play around with the feature to see whether it works at all, and if there are maybe some edge cases which are not working as well. We also run CI checks on every pull request, and of a note, we have automatic pull requests for translation updates. So we use a third-party service for translations, where translators translate everything. And as soon as I translate something, we have a bot which creates a pull request for that. Okay, we're nearing our release. So, as said before, we have 11 flavors, and we need to upload all of them to various app stores. We don't just upload to Apple's App Store and Google Play, but also to Huawei and the Amazon App Store. In total, that are roughly 30 uploads, I think a couple more, which we do, which are quite a lot. So we automated that because, well, if we hit any bug in production, we want to release a new version soon and fast. So automating that is a big improvement for us. Then we do another round of testing. We introduced integration tests with Maestro. We do manual explorative testing once again, and we have specific reviews by our designers and analysts. And then we pray that nothing goes wrong. Nah, just kidding. With roughly 80 million installs, every possible bug will get hit. We're pretty sure of that. So we introduce shift-right methods to help us reduce this impact. Also, I've noticed we do a very throughout release communication to our stakeholders. I mean, we are a huge company, so we have a lot of stakeholders, and every single of them is asking, hey, when is this feature coming out to production and so on. So this keeps us sane because they can just read that. Okay, now we're basically ready to roll out our app. We do that with a staged rollout, sometimes also referred to as phase rollout or canary releases. And what it basically means is, on the first day, we roll out our app to just 1% of our users. The next day, we do 2, then 5, and as you can see, it then rises. If anything goes wrong, we stop it, we halt the release, fix the issue, and then keep the cycle on. The next step is, assuming everything went right and smooth until now, we also have feature flags and A/B tests. They're roughly the same because they switch between 2 versions of a feature. And it's really helpful for example, for marketing issues, when you want to, for a specific campaign or date, want to turn on a feature. Also, if we notice, well, if we have a bug in that feature, we can just turn it off. It's also really helpful for API changes. Of note is also, since we have basically every feature also available on the website, for our critical stuff like the basket and search, we can switch from the native implementation to the web view. That's like for the really worst case scenario. And fortunately, so far, we haven't used that, which is really awesome in my opinion. Then we also do error monitoring and analytics. Again, those are basically the same thing, just from a different perspective. Error monitoring is to ensure technical quality. Analytics is like the usability quality. We measure crashes, and we have dashboards for every individual feature. That helps us to directly see whether something went wrong or not. And while measuring it, we measure the crash-free user sessions and then prioritize our bugs by the affected users. If you combine both of them, you can measure, for example, whether less bugs lead to better user retention. And also with the analytics, we can measure whether our assumptions about the usability of certain features are actually as we predicted them. If they don't match expectations, we basically start again, improve our code, improve our feature, and release a new version. And the last measure is basically a so-called rolling release window. So you can now see here we support roughly 6 versions. Actually, we tried to support as much as possible. but that aren't necessarily 6, but just imagine it's 6. And as soon as we release a new version, the oldest one gets force updated, so it can't be used anymore. That's really helpful in case we want to deprecate an old API version, but it's still in use by V1, for example. As soon as it's force updated, we can turn off that API on the backend side. It's also really useful for getting rid of translations, feature flags, and so on. And as a conclusion, you basically have to do both, right? So at scale, shift left helps us to probe bugs, and it helps also to speed up the development. But on the other hand, shift right is indispensable for assessing quality in use and knowing where things go wrong. Shift right also helps us to intervene early for critical bugs. But then again, if we notice them, shift left makes sure that we will never regress on that bug again. Thank you very much for listening. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the great talk. I'm really curious about your golden testing process because I can imagine your app is quite big. How often do you run golden tests and how happy are you with your setup there?
So we run them with every pull request. Well,
on every push, like every commit you're doing?
Yeah, basically. But also only if those files are changed. If they aren't changed, then of course they will not change. So far, we are actually quite happy with them.
Any other questions?
So regarding the feature flags, what kind of software, what kind of tool are you using in order to enable or disable the features?
We use file-based remote config for that. Does that already answer your question?
Yes, but it also work with the A/B tests, I guess.
Yes, we also use it for A/B tests, but then we have our own in-house analytics service, so to say, which we then combine together.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the talk. Pardon me if I ask too naive questions since I'm not a software developer, but I'm curious, you introduced several stages of the software development. Which stage you have to spend the most of the time, most of the effort, and which stage do you hate the most to do it?
I would say, well, it's kind of a love-hate relationship. I mean, on the one side, I basically hate giving reviews if there are too many comments saying, well, you could improve there, you could improve that, and so on. But then again, that really helps to raise the quality of it. I would say that's also one of the things which takes the longest, together with testing.
Hi, so I saw that you are supporting 6 parallel versions at the same time.
Roughly, it's on a best effort basis, basically. So we try to support as much as possible, but if we see, well, we can only support the last 2 versions, then it's the last 2 versions.
So my question is it only for the major versions, or so let's say you have a small patch. So do you also support the previous version before the patch and also after the patch, or do you have a force update for that? How do you handle it?
It's only for major versions.
Okay. Yeah.
I have another question. You mentioned you're doing reviews with designers and also with your stakeholders. Can you explain a bit how you're doing it and maybe what's the difference between designer reviews and stakeholder reviews for you?
Yeah, so we also do specific reviews for analytics and in general for, I would say, functional correctness, which are done, so design reviews are done by the designers, functional reviews by the product owners, and if we introduce new analytics, then it's done by the analysts. Does that already answer your question?
Yeah, definitely parts of it. Another one would be, how do you enable those people to do the reviews? Do you, I don't know, push a test app to them? What are you doing for it?
Yeah, exactly. We built a specific test version for them. One during PR reviews, basically, and as a process of that. But then again, also once briefly before we put a version to production.
Any other question? No? Okay. Ah, there.
Hit me.
I have a question about the feature flags. You said like you have around 120. So how you make sure that when changing them, you don't make mistake? You target proper version, because in the console it's easy to make a mistake. So what process do you have in place to prevent that?
Basically, we measure that with error monitoring. So if we see a rise of issues, then we turn the feature flag again off. But yeah, apart from that, it's a little bit of knowing when a feature got introduced and when it was ready to be enabled. Okay, I see. I don't have any good question for that because I think so far we haven't run into that issue.
I see one last question.
Yeah, I saw that you have the option to shift to web view, right? Whenever if it's an emergency. So I was curious how you have it. Is it like a also remote config that you can switch from the mobile app to the web view if there is an emergency, or?
Yes, that's also a feature flag.
Okay.
So just to give a little more context, so a lot of our app is actually a web view.
Mm-hmm.
So in most cases, we introduce a feature first as a web view, and then while it's already live, we develop the native version. And at some point, we flip the feature flag and then switch from the web view to the native version. And a lot of times, we remove the web view then. But for core features, we keep that option. Yes, Flutter.
Great.
Thanks again.
So thank you so much for this great talk. And now we welcome Lukas from Widget Book on the stage. So big applause for Lukas.
You can grab a drink first. I'm going to wait like 30 seconds. Okay, everyone. I guess everyone had now their chance to grab some drinks. So I would say we proceed with the program. So first of all, again, thanks for everyone joining this meetup. Quite excited to be here. I'm Lucas, co-founder and CEO of Widget Book. And today I'd love to discuss with you design systems. And I'd love to, in particular, talk with you about how you can enhance widget cataloging, testing, and then also the collaboration with designers. And I'd love to start my talk with a question. Quick show of hands. Who in this room already heard about Widget Book? Okay, amazing. It's basically everyone. That's great. And who in this room already used Widget Book in the past? Okay, amazing. Also some folks. And who is using Widget Book currently in production? Okay, amazing. Also some people here. Definitely great to hear. Do you guys want to give the talk? No, of course, just joking. I'm going to proceed, but for everyone here who has not heard about Widget Book yet, we are open source focused and we are an active part in the Flutter community. So we're building an open source package, and we are not only talking in those Flutter meetups, we're also talking at the big Flutter conferences that have been happening. And for example, this Sunday I'm also taking the plane to Colombia to speak at the Flutter Latam conference. So we're really quite actively engaged in the Flutter community. And of course, we are not only speaking there and hosting events for the community, we're also doing something. So we're building, in the end, a dev tool. We have an open source package in the core. And that open source package is being used by the Flutter community. And here we have a great collaboration with the Google team. So Google features us at the biggest Flutter conference that happened this year. And we're also part of the official Flutter docs. That's maybe the reason how you came across Widget Book. But enough for the background. Let's discuss what is on the agenda for today. So today I'd love to tell you a bit more about how you can, first of all, build your own Flutter design system with Widget Book, and then also how you can quickly test your widgets in all its different use cases with our add-ons and knobs. And then in the end, we're also going to learn how you can share your widgets with your entire team, with designers, also with product owners, with other stakeholders in that process, and then also how you can specifically simplify your design reviews. So let's jump straight in and let's start the process with a story. So how does app development usually works? And what we're usually seeing is that the process starts with a client who has some idea, and a designer then has the opportunity, the great job working together with the client to somehow figure out, okay, what does the client actually want? And at some point, the client is happy with the design that the designer created, and the designer can then start out by building the real design. And usually what the designer does, if the process of the app, if the scope is a bit longer, as for example with the app that we saw from Media Markt Saturn, it's not just some MVP, it's clear this app is going to stay around for a year, more than a year, a couple of years. So we really need something that is maintainable and reusable for the future. So what is the designer doing? The designer creates a design system. And nowadays, we can really use great tools as a designer. So what the designer usually does is the designer would use Figma to create their perfect design system. And once the designer does it, so once the designer cataloged all their styles, once the designer cataloged all their components, once the designer composes the components to screens and then also into flows, it's on us, it's on the developers. So the design handoff process is happening, and now we as developers take over. And what we are then doing is we have to build those components from scratch. And as I mentioned, if the scope of our app is an app that should stay around for years, what we should do as developers, we should also mimic this design system from Figma and build our own system for Flutter. And what is commonly being used in Flutter teams is they build something called a gallery app, meaning inside your app, you have a specific page where all of your components are cataloged so that you can easily reuse them and can basically share an overview with your entire team. That is common practice among Flutter companies, and unfortunately, there are some problems with it. So first of all,
you as a Flutter team have to invest resources into building it. And then you also have to maintain it over a certain period of time. And especially that maintenance process becomes quite a hassle over the month and years to come. And in the end, what you end up is you get a list of all of your components, but you only have those components cataloged in one configuration, only in one theme, in one device size, in one language. But the designer can already, in Figma, catalog their components in all of those different states. And we as developers cannot do it with our gallery app. So building your own Flutter design system, exactly how the designer can do it in Figma, is actually quite difficult. And that's exactly why we built Widgetbook. And Widgetbook is fully open source, and I'd love to show you now how you can get set up with it. So first of all, what you would do is you would use Widgetbook and put it into your dependencies. And once you did it, you have the chance now to basically create Widgetbook with an annotation-based code generator. It is very similar to Freezed. And in the end, you can just annotate your Widgetbook in your root app, and then you can also use Widgetbook in a monorepo setup. So it basically depends on what kind of setup you have in your app. If you have a monorepo setup, you can just provide a new package, a new Widgetbook underscore app package, for example, and there in the main.widgetbook, and there in the main.dart file, you would use the Widgetbook app command. And once you did it, you would run the Flutter pub run command. You would let the build runner run to generate the structure of the widgetbook for you. And what it would do is it would create a new main.widgetbook.dart file for you where your widgetbook lives in. And the only thing that is then left for you to do is you need to tell Widgetbook, okay, which widgets do I actually want to include in my widgetbook? And what you can do there, you can again use this annotation-based code generator that works similar to Freezed, and you can just annotate the widgets that you would like to use in Widgetbook. So we have that use case here, for example, where we have the widgetbook.useCase annotation. We provide it with a name. This use case would, for example, be a container with green color, so the name is with green color. And then we write a method for that use case, in this case for our green container use case. And here we need to tell Widgetbook, okay, what do we want to include in Widgetbook? And that is just a column which is wrapping our container. And then we need to mock the dependency of that container, in this case a color, and we give it the green color. And that's all we got to do to make a widget accessible in Widgetbook. And on average, our customers need about 1 minute to catalog a single widget from the app. So if you have a usual app where you have like something between 50 and 80 reusable widgets, it usually takes you 1 hour to catalog all the widgets that you have in your app, and you're already done with it. Once you annotated it, you just let the build runner run again so that the widgetbook is being updated, it's being generated for you. And then you choose, okay, on which platform would I like to run my widgetbook. We always recommend you to run it on a desktop, because then you can benefit from hot reload, but you could also run your widgetbook on web. And once you run it, you'll get this nice overview on the left side of all of the different widgets that are being cataloged in your widgetbook, that you can basically scroll through, share with your entire team, and thereby always keep an overview of what was developed in your app. And if your app gets quite large, you also have a search bar to easily find the widgets that you cataloged. And that's basically how you can build your own design system using Widgetbook. And next on, we're going to tackle the question, how can we actually quickly test our widgets in different use cases? Because here again, designers really have the chance of using Figma, and in Figma you can actually create a great overview of all of your different widgets in different configurations. And usually what designers are giving us is they don't give us a widget only in a single configuration, and that's also the demand that the users have. So currently, users usually would like to have different themes. They expect different languages. They expect us to be responsive on all of their different devices. They expect different text scale factors, accessibility settings, and so on. And we have to support all of those use cases in our Flutter app. And the question is, how can we do it quickly? And usually, this process takes quite a while, and I would really like to avoid you testing it so long that you grow very old, that you look like a skeleton. So we would really like to speed up that process for you. And you can use Widgetbook here. So Widgetbook can really be your superpower in testing your widgets quickly on different use cases. And how we can do it is, we first of all have our add-ons. And with the add-ons of Widgetbook, you have the chance to, first of all, catalog your widgets in different, and view those widgets in different themes. The first option that we have is we are supporting custom themes. So you can just include your own custom theme here. You can also use themes that depend on material. And you can also use themes that depend on Cupertino. So everything is supported in Widgetbook. And once you did that, once you have multiple theme support, that is how it's going to look like. So you can test all of your widgets in the Widgetbook UI very quickly on, for example, light and dark mode. And here, quick question for the audience. Who is using at least 2 themes in their app? Okay, nice. Who is using more than 2 themes? How many are you using? 4, okay. Anyone more than 4? Okay, but I mean at least 4, and 4 would also be supported. So basically, all those different add-ons that we have in Widgetbook are first of all customizable and then also extendable. So you do not only need to use light and dark mode; you can use whatever device, whatever theme you like. Second add-on that you could, for example, use is a text scale factors add-on, so that people like me wearing glasses. That maybe don't wear the glasses in the morning, have their phone configured a bit differently, can still properly see everything that is developed in their app. And here again, that is how it looks like. The third great add-on that you can use is our localization add-on. And here again, quick question for the audience: who is using at least 2 languages in their app? Who is more than 4 languages? More than 6? More than 10? Maybe, okay, crazy. How many languages do you have? 18. Okay, wow, okay, impressive. So there are definitely lots of languages to support, and then also to verify if it looks properly. And that can also be done by Widgetbook. And as you can see here in this example, we do not only provide you an option to test different languages, but we also allow you to test different orientations. So we basically have also left and right orientation if you go, for example, for English and Arabic here. And another add-on that you can use is our devices or our frame add-ons. And that in the end should give you the opportunity to quickly test responsiveness for your widgets. Here again, quick question for the audience. Who is testing their widgets or their app at least for 3 different devices? Okay, that's a lot less people than I expected. Okay, how many are you using in the end? 6, okay, nice. Awesome, and that can also be tested with Widgetbook. So you can have your iPhone, for example, here, or your iPad mini, and very quickly verify if responsiveness is also given in your app. And that's, in the end, how you can quickly test your widgets in different use cases with add-ons. And add-ons allow you to test your widget against the global properties of your app, but we also have our knobs available, and with the knobs you can go really into the specifics. So you can test every widget in more detail. And how our knobs work is when you are mocking, in this case, for example, we have a new UI component that requires a text. We write context.knobs.string. Then we provide a label for it that is going to be shown in the Widgetbook UI of text. And then we provide an initial value. And this initial value can then be overwritten in the Widgetbook UI. And no worries, it's not only strings that are supported, but we're supporting every data type that's available. And that is how it can then look like. So you can quickly override the value of text in the UI, but you can also, in the end, have the chance to, for example, set up the replies or the amount of retweets or the amount of likes here. You can also go ahead and for this tweet here, for example, say, hey, I want to test how does my widget look like on different use cases that we have. So not only when I have one image, also if I have 2 images and 4 images. And therefore, you can also test really hard to reach use cases easily with Widgetbook. And that is, in the end, all the benefits that we have for the open source Widgetbook that is free to use for everyone. So you can build your own design system with Widgetbook, and you can then also very quickly test your widgets in different use cases. And if you would like to get started with the open source package, as I mentioned, it's free. You can just check out our docs page, docs.widgetbook.io, to get started. But I'm not done here. So I promised you we're also going to learn how we can simplify the review process with designers, and that's what we're going to focus on next. And here I would love to start with a brief story again. So as we usually, as developers, created a feature that we would now like to test, that we would now like the designers to test. What we're doing is we go to the designer, we are super proud, we invested our blood, sweat and tears into making it work, into finally building what the designer wanted. And what happened is what you can see here. The designer is firing it up, the designer didn't like it, and we have to start all over again. And at this moment, it's usually already quite frustrating because the designer is usually getting into that process quite late. As we already heard, for example, also from the previous talk, is that we mostly have the situation where once the app is developed, basically, so once it's not only the UI that was developed, it's also logic flew in it, there's also data binding that already happened. It's basically ready to ship to customers. At this point in time, the designer gets to see the app, and if at this moment of time the designer then doesn't like something, we really, like the changes that are now happening, are really painful for us to solve, because now it's actually taking a lot of time from us, and usually some compromises are found, and maybe the app that is then shipped to the customers is not perfectly what the designer envisioned. And therefore the question is, how can we more efficiently collaborate with designers? And that's what we are solving with Widgetbook Cloud. So Widgetbook Cloud serves you as your collaboration platform, especially for designers and developers, but in the end for your entire product team. And what we're doing is, we first of all allow you to host your Widgetbook very easily on all the different branches that you have on your repository, and can thereby share your widgets very easily with the entire team. We also have integrations with your Git providers, like for example with GitHub. So we wrote comments for those Git providers that you can very quickly access the latest build just via the comment, or you can also access our reviews via the comment. And the reviews are what's coming now. So we learned how we can quickly share our widgets with designers, but what we can also do is we can simplify our design reviews. And what we're doing here is, I told you in the beginning that designers have the great chance of already using a tool called Figma that allows them to build the best design possible. And what is usually happening is a developer ships the test app to the designer. Designer then has the mobile phone, skims through the app. On the other page somewhere, the designer opens Figma, skims through Figma, has to check, okay, which screen is actually matching to the Figma design here. And what we are doing with Widgetbook Cloud, we allow you to have a side-by-side comparison between Figma and the Flutter widget. So we draw a connection here, and in the end, always keep your design and code in sync, so that the designer or product owner or whoever gets a chance of, on the one hand, seeing that's exactly how the widget was supposed to be implemented, that's how it looks in Figma, versus that's how it looks in Flutter. In the end, the Flutter widget is interactive. It's very similar to what is already happening in the open source package. You have the chance of using our themes, basically all the add-ons and all the knobs we talked about. If anything is off, you can set a precise comment, and you will then be notified about anything that the designer wants you to change. And you can then decide if I want to accept or if I want to reject this widget. And here you're running an automated check again in your Git provider that is basically always verifying if all the changes that we made are met now by the developers, and if so, we can safely merge with confidence. And therefore, what will never happen again is that we will never be in that state again where we ship UI that was actually not what the designer intended us to ship. So we will always ship great UI to our customers. And that's in the end how we allow you to keep design and code in sync, so you can share your widgets with designers and simplify design reviews. And that's in the end how we, with designers and developers, can work happily together and live happily ever after. And if you would like to get a demo of Widgetbook and would like to get early access to Widgetbook Cloud, we have a bunch of our team sitting here today. So just feel free, reach out to us and come talk to us. And if you're watching the stream, you can check it out at widgetbook.io. Thanks a lot.
Hi. So I have two questions. The first one would be, so we have this side by side with Figma and the app view. So can we do, like, we click on a widget and we can see that this is 25 pixels, and also on the Figma we click, we see that this is 25 pixels. So so we don't have to guess with our eyes, we can actually see that this matches the size. Can we do that now?
Yeah, so what you can already do right now is you can basically see exactly what changed on a component level. So in the end, in Widgetbook, I always like to show in those talks a visually very appealing example, meaning something like a molecule or an entire page, because it just looks like more. But usually what you can do that comparison also on a component level, and thereby it's usually very easy for you to exactly see what changed, but what you currently refer to is right now being worked on by us to improve that process even further, so that you can, on the one hand, what you talked about, explore the different properties further, so that you know exactly, okay, in Flutter we have padding of 8, in Figma we have a padding of 8, and that you can then also already see exactly what changed, so that we can highlight for you what changed. Yeah.
Thank you. And the second question would be, can we host our own version of this Widgetbook Cloud, so that, like, currently it would be in your server, right? But could we host it on our server?
Yeah, so in the end, Widgetbook is an open source package, and everything that I talked about in the first part of the talk can also be self-hosted by you. You can also host it on your own server. But currently, you could not benefit from that review feature where we analyze exactly what changed, give you the side-by-side comparison with Figma. That is something that for now exclusively works on Widgetbook Cloud, because we decided, let's go SaaS first to be able to ship more features quickly for you, depending on your feedback. And if we would, in the end, have to support multiple clients with multiple self-hosting versions, we would end up with, I don't know, hundreds of versions that we have to maintain, and therefore, for now, it's SaaS only, but in the future, we're also going to offer a self-hosting option.
Anyone else?
Thank you for interesting description of this idea. I have a question. So imagine that tomorrow our team want to utilize Widgetbook, and we already have like bunch of design in Figma. So we start adding some components, extract them into the Widgetbook. Like Figma-wise, is it something specific structure should be there in place in order to start using this like comparison? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's one of the things that we try to get straight very early, because we did not want to fuss with the designer process at all. So the designer doesn't need to follow any specific structure. You basically just have your existing Figma file, and what you can do then as a developer, you can use just the link from that component, and that is unique for that component, and you basically use that link in the annotation that I was showing in the beginning, basically where you annotate your widget, you have a third parameter available, which is called design link. There you just paste the design link, and that's all you have to do. So the designer doesn't need to change the process, the developer doesn't need to change the process, and it's working like this.
And one last question.
Thank you. As you mentioned, you are open source project. I was wondering how you finance yourself and your team, and what is actually the business model at the end?
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid question. Everything that I was showing in the beginning, so basically the entire part where the developer has all the benefits, so where you can create your own design system, where you can quickly test your widgets in all those different use cases, that is free to use and open source. And the part of Widgetbook Cloud, so as soon as you would like to bring on your entire product team, so designers, product owners, and whoever, and want to first of all share your Widgetbook with them, and then want to simplify your review processes with the Figma integration, that is paid. And that's a classic B2B SaaS business model. But in the end, with Widgetbook, we also raised a funding round already. Are looking forward to raising the next one very soon. So we are venture backed and are therefore able to work full time on the open source package, really push it forward, and therefore there are also a lot more exciting features to come. Happy to chat about it afterwards. And that is also not all the team, so we are also some more people. Happy to discuss it further later.
So thank you so much, Lucas. That was it for the people in the stream. So thank you so much for listening to the talks, and I hope to see you soon again in the next stream of Flutter Berlin. So, and for everyone else, we